If the creature rises now, the whole lake may see it. A dark shape moves below the surface of Loch Ness. Above it, cold rain hits the water. A boat engine fades in the distance. For a few seconds, the lake looks empty. Then a long wake cuts across the black surface, too wide for a bird, too smooth for a wave, and too silent for a machine. If the Loch Ness Monster were real, this would be its most dangerous moment. Not the deep water, not the cold, not even hunger. The surface, a hidden giant that breathes air, must come up eventually. If it stays below too long, it drowns. If it rises in the wrong place, people see it. Cameras turn. Boats move closer. The legend becomes a target. That is the first rule of this creature's life. Breathe fast. Leave almost nothing behind. Disappear before the world understands what it saw. Loch Ness is built for secrets. It is long, narrow, and dark, stretching through the Scottish Highlands. In places, the bottom drops more than 700 feet, deeper than 2 football fields stacked end to end. Heat from the hills stains the water brown-black, so light fades quickly. A large animal would not need magic to hide here. The lake would do half the work. But hiding is not the same as surviving. A giant body needs fuel. It needs oxygen. It needs warmth. It needs a reason to be here generation after generation, without leaving clear proof behind. So the real mystery is not just whether something large could be seen in Loch Ness. The real mystery is this: could a giant animal live its whole life under this dark water and still follow the rules of nature? To imagine that, we have to leave the monster movie behind. This creature cannot be a ghost, a curse, or a leftover nightmare. It has to be flesh and bone. It has to be shaped by cold water, limited food, and the constant danger of being noticed. Its body would need to be long and heavy, but not clumsy. A 25-foot animal, close to the length of a small school bus, could not waste energy thrashing around. It would need a powerful tail or strong limbs to move in slow, controlled bursts. Its skin would likely be dark gray, brown, or green-black, almost the color of the lake itself. From above, it would look like another shadow. From below, it would vanish into the dim surface. If it has a long neck, that neck cannot be thin like a snake in a storybook. It would need muscle, blood vessels, and strong bones. That could explain why sightings often describe only part of a creature. A head, a hump, a line of movement, then nothing. A real animal would not surface to impress anyone. It would surface because its lungs demand it. A deep breath could be the difference between life and panic. Real diving animals slow their bodies when they go under. Their hearts beat slower. Blood is saved for the brain and muscles. A Loch Ness giant would need a version of that same strategy. It would dive, drift, listen, and wait. Every breath would be timed. Every rise would be a risk. And beneath the surface, another problem waits. The lake is not an ocean. It does not offer endless meals. If a large animal lives here, it cannot hunt like a shark tearing through open seas. It has to behave more like a patient shadow. In dark water, sight is limited. Sound and pressure matter more. A fish turning in the distance sends a tiny signal through the water. A bird landing above makes a soft pulse. A boat engine can travel far through the lake, warning the creature before humans ever see it. The hidden giant would read the lake with its whole body. A school of fish gathers near a steep underwater slope. The creature stays below them, almost still. Moving too soon would waste energy. Moving too late would lose the meal. Then, in one short burst, it rises. The water breaks. The prey scatters. And whether the hunt succeeds or fails, the giant cannot keep chasing forever. That is the hard truth of life in cold water. A failed hunt has a cost. Muscles burn energy. Oxygen runs low. Heat drains away. For a creature this large, hunger is not dramatic. It is constant pressure, shaping every choice. It might eat fish when fish are available. It might take eels if it can catch them. It might grab a water bird from below when the surface is quiet. It might feed on carrion because in nature, no easy meal is wasted. This would not make it a monster. It would make it an opportunist. The best survivors are often the ones that do not refuse food. But one animal, feeding carefully, is only the beginning of the question. A species needs young. It needs a way to replace the old with the new. And this is where the Loch Ness legend becomes much harder. A single giant can hide. A family is harder to hide. Imagine a young one in the shallows, only a few feet long. It is not terrifying. It is vulnerable. Its body is still growing. Its lungs are smaller. Its dives are shorter. The deep lake that protects an adult could become dangerous for a young animal that cannot hold its breath long enough. It would need sheltered water, small prey, and protection from birds, large fish, disease, freezing weather, and weakness before its next meal. If the creature gives birth to live young, the mother would need a quiet place away from boat traffic. If it lays eggs, the challenge becomes even greater. Cold Highland water does not make that easy. This is why a real Loch Ness animal would need more than mystery. It would need a hidden nursery, maybe a deep cove, maybe a narrow channel, maybe a place where fallen trees, steep banks, and dark water create cover. The young would grow slowly, learning the map of the lake through instinct and experience. Where fish gather, where the bottom drops, where engines pass above, where rising for air is safest. In the first years of life, survival would not look like legend. It would look like hiding, feeding, and not making mistakes. Then the body begins to change. The young creature becomes longer and heavier. Its dives last longer. Its muscles hold more power. A tail stroke can push it through deep water with force. It no longer fears most animals in the lake. But size brings a new kind of danger. Now it needs more food. Now it makes a bigger wake. Now every trip to the surface is harder to hide. This is the trade every large animal faces. Power protects it, but power also demands payment. A large body is like a big engine. Can do more, but it also burns more fuel. In Loch Ness, that fuel is limited. During warmer months, the lake may offer more chances. Fish move, birds land, the surface stays busy. But in colder seasons, every meal may be harder to find. The creature must slow down. It must use the depths like shelter. It must choose the right moment to hunt. Then comes the sound it has learned to avoid. A boat. The vibration enters the water long before the hull passes overhead. The creature sinks. Its body turns toward deeper water. It does not understand cameras or headlines, but it can react to noise, pressure, and movement. In a world where being seen brings pursuit, caution becomes survival. The boat slows. Voices carry over the water. For one moment, the creature needs air. This is the kind of moment that could create a legend. The head rises far from shore. A dark back rolls behind it. Someone points. Someone reaches for a phone. By the time the boat turns, the animal is gone. To the people above, it is a mystery. To the creature below, it was simply a breath taken too close to danger. As an adult, the hidden giant would know the lake in ways no human can. It would use deep channels during daylight and shallower slopes when conditions are right. It might move more during dawn, dusk, or rough weather, when waves break up its outline. It would avoid bright, calm days, when the surface becomes a mirror and every movement is easier to see. Its life would depend on staying boring to the world above. No roaring, no attacks on boats, no dramatic displays, just movement, silence, and survival. That may be the most realistic version of the Loch Ness Monster. Not a beast hunting people, not a dinosaur frozen in time. A cautious animal trapped in a narrow world, powerful enough to frighten us, but still limited by hunger, oxygen, and the size of its home. And then the greatest test arrives. A hard season. Rain changes the lake. Cold water sinks. Fish move deeper. Wind beats the surface until every breath becomes rougher. For days, maybe weeks, the creature finds little. His body has reserves, but reserves run down. A giant can fast for a while, but not forever. It follows the slope into darker water, where fish sometimes gather near the drop-off. It waits. Nothing. It moves again, slower this time. A young bird lands near the surface. Too far. A group of fish turns below a ledge. Closer. The creature rises, not fast at first. Then with one heavy burst. The school splits. Most escape. One does not. The hunt is over in seconds, and the lake closes above it. For a viewer, the scene may feel small. One meal in a dark lake. For the animal, it may be the difference between strength and decline. This is how survival often works. Not with one giant battle, but with 1,000 small moments where the body either gains enough to continue or loses a little more. If there are others of its kind, the pressure grows. Two adults cannot feed in the same small area forever. A mother with a young one cannot take every risk. A sick or injured animal may surface more often, not because it wants to be seen, but because its body cannot stay below as long. That may explain why some sightings describe strange movement. A rising hump, a crooked shape, a long shadow that seems to struggle before sinking again. A healthy, hidden animal avoids attention. A weak one may not have that choice. Age changes everything. The giant that once moved through the lake like a shadow now carries old injuries. A tail stroke is slower. A dive is shorter. A hunt takes more effort. In cold water, weakness is quiet, but it is dangerous. The animal may need to breathe more often. It may move closer to shore where food is easier to reach. It may be seen more than it was in its prime. And for the legend, that creates one final twist. The moments humans notice may not be moments of power. They may be moments of struggle. An old creature surfaces in mist. Its back breaks the water. Its head lifts just long enough to take air. Then it sinks into the dark, leaving only rings behind. No proof remains on the surface. Just a story. Science has good reasons to be careful with that story. Clear evidence for a large unknown animal in Loch Ness has never been confirmed. Many sightings can be explained by waves, logs, swimming deer, seals, large fish, boat wakes, or the human mind turning a dark shape into something larger. Real species leave signs. Wonder should not replace evidence. But evidence does not erase wonder either. The legend of Loch Ness survives because it sits in the space between what we know and what we cannot easily see. Deep water has always done that to people. It hides the bottom, changes shapes. It makes ordinary things look alive. It reminds us that nature does not reveal everything just because we are watching. If the Loch Ness Monster is not real, the lake still teaches us something real. Mystery can grow from natural fear, difficult conditions, and brief glimpses we do not fully understand. And if a hidden giant were real, it would not be a monster at all. It would be one of nature's hardest survivors. An animal built for darkness, forced to breathe in secret, pressed by hunger, limited by cold, protected by depth, threatened by the same surface that gives it life. In the end, its story would not be about attacking the world above. It would be about avoiding it. One day, an old giant would sink into the deepest water and not rise again. Its body would settle where light barely reaches. The lake would keep moving. Fish would pass through the shadows. Rain would return to the Highlands. People would still stand on the shore, staring across the black water, waiting for the impossible shape to appear. Maybe they would see only waves. Maybe they would see a log. Maybe, for one breath, they would see something that makes the whole world feel larger. That is why Loch Ness still holds us. Not because every story is true, but because the best mysteries make us ask better questions. What lives where we cannot see? What rules would a legend have to follow? And how much of the natural world is still waiting below the surface? Thank you for exploring the wild with Wildlife Realms. Subscribe for more journeys into the heart of nature.